Hello, I'm Michael Kithcart. Welcome to Champions of Risk podcast, where we examine the many aspects of risk to help us all face uncertainty with more courage, confidence, and humor together. Today, we are going to be talking about small businesses and big brands that make a difference. And there is nobody better to talk about those two topics than today's guest, Amanda Brinkman. She is the Chief Brand Officer at Deluxe. She's a sought-after public speaker, sharing her do well by doing good philosophy on stages all around the country. She demonstrates how both companies and individuals can make a meaningful and positive difference in people's lives while also fostering their own success in the process. But that is not all. Amanda is also the creator, the producer, and the host of Deluxe's hit series, Small Business Revolution. It's an inspirational reality TV show that revitalizes entire communities through small business makeovers. If you haven't seen this, you really need to check it out. It is so cool, and it was named as one of Inc. magazine's top shows for entrepreneurs. You can check it out on Hulu. It's on Prime Video. It's so well done. We're going to talk lots and lots about Small Business Revolution today. But first, welcome, Amanda. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'll use any excuse to talk to you, Michael.
Thank you. I've just had the benefit of having lots of great conversations with you over the years. So I'm anxious to have the Champions of Risk audience be able to hear some of your wisdom. And I just want to kind of like kick it off because you have been an inspiring female executive for big brands like United Health Group, Allianz, General Mills, and now Deluxe. And you're young. You've done it at such a, fast pace. I've just always been in awe of that. So kind of like give us an idea of what have been some of the drivers that have really helped you with your career trajectory.
Well, it's so interesting because I do feel like I lived my career in pursuit of proving this thesis that brands can do well by doing good. And it's interesting. Sometimes I feel like in different career opportunities, I've had the opportunity to very much prove that in the work that I'm doing. And in other cases, I feel like certain stages of my career have been building up the skill set or the experience to be able to do that goodness at a larger scale. So when I think back to early in my career, some of the things that I was learning weren't necessarily exactly that goodness at play, but it was building the skill set to bring me to something like what I'm doing now, which is kind of a culmination of this mission of proving that brands can do both good for people as well as be profitable. So yeah, I think throughout my career, at the very beginning, I worked on a large car account, BMW, which was a phenomenal experience. I had a lot of responsibility and learned quite quickly. Worked on the BMW films, which really started to whet my appetite for branded entertainment and how that can look and feel different. It can feel like something people want to spend time with versus kind of the former, which was always, before branded entertainment, it was more about kind of product placement and things like that. And so to actually be a brand as a publisher, to be able to publish something that people, again, want to spend time with, it was great to learn that early in my career. But then I kind of put that on the shelf for a while and haven't really put that to use until my latest role. I think at United Health Group, I really learned about building a team from the inside out. How can you create creativity within a corporate environment in order to drive the brand and to truly use what you do to help make people's lives better? We were kind of on the nice end of healthcare that was helping develop, better habits and kind of change people's lifestyles in order to reduce the cost of healthcare. And then at each of the brands, I've kind of applied something different, something that I've been able to develop in terms of a skill set. Again, I think has all contributed to getting me to this place where I've been able to do something like what we're doing now.
Yeah, which is really phenomenal. I love that you're able to like see how that progression has led you to what you're doing now. You mentioned skill sets, in each one of the areas, and team building and leadership and brands. If you were talking to somebody that was just starting out in their career right now, how would you describe some of the specific skill sets you think are needed to be able to have that lens of doing well by doing good?
I think it's about figuring out how your brand plays a role in the world beyond just selling things. And I think especially if you're in the marketing space, you are the closest to kind of consumer insights. And so by being close to those insights, you therefore have insights into, what would make their lives better? How can you participate in something that matters to them, again, beyond just kind of selling them a product or a service? And so I think it's about, no matter what your role is within a company, figuring out what is it that your company does that if they weren't in business, the world would be missing. And again, how you can participate in your customers' lives. And so I feel like one of the biggest pieces of advice is just, at the very beginning, figure out how can you be on the good side of working with your customers. Instead of just thinking about insights as a way to sell them something, think about insights in terms of much more on the ethnographic side. Like, how can you actually do something that's going to matter to them? Because not every company needs to be alleviating poverty or homelessness or solving water purification. There are so many ways to be making people's lives better. So where can your brand play a natural role, again, beyond just what you sell?
Yeah, that's great. And I like kind of like the juxtaposition that happened with Deluxe. And, I knew it as like a big Minnesota company, a $2 billion company. But then the story behind it is that it was really an entrepreneurial action of the creation of the checkbook, right? That created the beginning of this company that's gone on to great things. So when you look even at, you came on board with Deluxe and saw the historical, perspective of the company, how did that start to influence or shape your concept around small business revolution?
Well, we were at this kind of crossroads. We were about to celebrate our centennial, and our legacy is in the check printing space, but we had evolved so much as a company. We were doing so many other things in the fintech space, around technology beds for small businesses. We were helping small businesses with their marketing. And so, 6 years ago, we needed to use our centennial as an opportunity to talk about our future. And you were right, our roots as a company are in the entrepreneurial space. And so it was about, if we're trying to raise awareness of the Deluxe brand and get in front of small businesses, what better way to do that than to do something that matters to small businesses? Could we do something good for the small business community? And as a result, do well by Deluxe goals around this work, which was, again, to raise awareness and change perceptions that we were more than a check printer. So the small business revolution really was born out of this concept of doing well by doing good. For us, doing well would be making sure we get the Deluxe name out there and associated with small businesses to change those perceptions. But could we do something that was good for small business on our way to those goals? And the number one thing small businesses need is support. And so instead of just creating an ad campaign, talking at them about that we could build their website or design their logo or help them with payroll, why not walk alongside them and celebrate small businesses and tell their stories in order to, from the very beginning, the vision was truly to create a movement. We felt like we could inspire more people to support small businesses if we were telling their stories. Because when you know so many entrepreneurs who spend a lot of time in this space, when you hear a small business owner's story, you want to support them. You're putting a literal face to a business, and you are helping yourself connect with the fact that you're supporting a family, you're supporting a business owner that gives back to their community. But there's more power in that dollar when you're spending it locally and with a small business. And so those were the kinds of stories that we wanted to tell. Again, all with the hopes to inspire more people to support small businesses. And we felt like our brand would come along for that ride, but it was all about doing it for the movement first and foremost, and that was the purpose behind it. And then again, we felt like Deluxe would get credit for doing it, but we weren't doing it for that. We were doing it because this work would matter in the lives of small businesses.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, there's hardly anything riskier than, starting and owning your own small business. And so that support piece is really, crucial on a lot of levels. What's interesting to me is like, okay, you have the centennial and you know that you want to help small businesses. And so out of that starts something like really big. Like not everybody thinks of movement, Amanda. So like how risky was it for you to kind of go to the executive group and roll out this big TV launch idea around a movement?
It was very risky because, as most companies, we were moving very much to be very measurement based with our marketing. I mean, the fact, the online space has been wonderful for marketers and understanding kind of the ROI on any particular marketing effort, but we almost have become, as marketers, quite paralyzed by the ability to measure marketing. And so therefore we want to apply that same kind of measurement and understanding of response to absolutely every kind of marketing effort. And some of those things just aren't measurable. Things like brand affinity and brand awareness and consideration set. And so I was going, to our board saying, how we love to measure everything. Instead, I think we should spend money on making beautiful films that tell stories, and we won't really be able to measure the impact for quite some time. I mean, it was quite a shift in terms of the spectrum, but I just made a lot of passionate speeches about the kind of this concept of sea of sameness. All of our competitors are huge spenders, and they are all doing exactly what a lot of advertisers do. They were advertising, they were talking at small businesses. But I just kept making a case for, if we stand over here instead, if we stand alongside the small business, if we position ourselves through the work as champions of these small businesses, we can reach them in a much more authentic and genuine way, because we're actually doing something that matters to them. And if we just stayed over here and did what you expected me to come in and do, which would have been create an ad campaign that says, hey, we used to be a check printer, now we do websites, we would have just been drowned out in that competitive spend. Our share of voice would have been so small, and we would have just been a whisper in that spend hurricane. But if we stood over here, the bet that we were making, and I think what eventually sold the work, is I was promising that we could stretch our spend. If we spent that same amount of money that we would have spent talking about ourselves on something that mattered, people would share it on our behalf. We would get organic reach because people would share it in social media. We would get earned media because people would write articles about the movement and why we're doing it, and that this was a notable way to celebrate a centennial, and all the different calls to action we had as a part of the publicity campaign around the movement. And so that was that was kind of the measurement that I was able to sell them on, is let me then measure the end reach of this work. And if I stretched our spend, then we know we're onto something. And in that first year, we did prove that we reached 12 times more people than we would have reached if we would have spent the same amount of money that we spent on these films and telling these stories on paid media. So we would have had to spend 12 times more money on advertising to reach the same amount of people that this beautiful work reached, because again, people were doing what we had hoped. They were sharing it on our behalf, and articles were being written about it, and we were able to have a huge reach, again, because we led with authenticity.
Yeah. It's easy to see in hindsight when you have this beautiful product and now you're getting ready to launch season 5 and everything, that this was really a great idea. But it's also helpful for people to know that it doesn't happen overnight. And so we get that the board finally said yes on this, but what was that process like? Like, how long did that take? And what do you, I mean, I know you said like that we could, this extra 12 times ad spend was great, but they had to just trust you at some point. So what kind of put them over the edge?
I think just the passionate speeches that I kept giving around. Yeah, I would tell stories. I would go to the boardroom and I would tell stories of small business owners. I mean, we had all this data, just like any other company that's trying to work with small businesses, around kind of these mega trends, or these kind of this quantitative data around small businesses. But when I would tell the story of, Lisa Downs, who owns Ellen's Dress and Bridal in Wabash, Indiana, and I would talk about her challenges of running a business through the lens of this person, this story, suddenly so many things fall into place. How you should, market to someone like that, how your product services could help someone like that, what the realities of running that kind of business are. And so I think by taking it back to kind of this qualitative ethnographic space of truly understanding an individual and how they make purchase decisions and what it's like to be them, I was able to kind of, convince them that we would also gain incredible marketing insights by walking alongside small businesses and spending real quality time with them, with boots on the ground, instead of just, continue to subscribe to this mass data. Let's really, really intimately not only just tell these small business owners stories, but let's really get to know them. I also kind of made a case for the fact that this would improve our product feedback loop. If we're working with a small business on a daily basis, helping them build websites, I think we felt like we would learn a lot more about our own products and services, and how we think that we know how a small business would go through a website building tool or manage their email marketing. But when you're actually sitting at the computer next to them, you just instantly learn so much more about kind of product experience. And then we also felt like this would create, either way, we would need to invest in some sort of content and photography and case studies and all the other things that large companies do around kind of content strategy. And we felt like this could be kind of the content engine by having the stories and what eventually then became the show be kind of this mother content. It would create this library of additional assets that as a marketing organization, we would need to be investing in anyway. So instead of investing in more stock photography of the woman who's flipping the open sign, which every company trying to reach small businesses invests in, let's have actual photography of small businesses that we have helped and walked alongside. And so I think there were multiple pieces that eventually pushed it over the edge. But once that first year showed that it was performed even better than we had predicted, then we just knew we were on to something and continued to invest in it.
Yeah. What surprised you the most about the whole small business revolution launch, and then even, what you've learned in the 5 seasons?
Well, in the first year, we told 100 story. The Small Business Revolution originally started, as I said, as a storytelling series. So we told the stories of 100 small businesses, and then we rolled those out throughout our 100th year. And in that case, in that year, we were truly just telling their stories. We weren't helping, or we weren't changing their websites or doing anything else. We were just telling their stories, again, to create this movement. But it was when we were going across the country telling these stories that we noticed that nowhere are small businesses more under siege than in our small towns. And we felt like the things that they were struggling with are things that we as a company do. And so the thing that surprised me is how quickly we were able to round the corner from just kind of brand association with small businesses into actually talking about what we do as a company. In some of my first decks, I had this kind of timeline that indicated that at some point we could round the corner of actually talking about what Deluxe does for small businesses. But because we had less than 1% brand awareness with small businesses when we started all this work, we felt like we might have to invest for a few years in just work that associated the name Deluxe with small business. But what surprised us was how quickly this took off, and that we were able to round that corner and start talking about what we did as a company through this work quicker than we thought. We thought there might be a few years down. So it was already in the second year of the work, and that's how it evolved into a television show. Is we felt like if the things that these small businesses need are things that we do, could we show us helping them with those things, and then film those transformations or film those changes so that other small businesses can learn from it. And so that's when the Small Business Revolution Main Street was born, which is now what it is today, which is a show. And each season we ask people to nominate their favorite small town, and then we invest $500,000 in revitalizing the winning town's main street. And we do it through their small businesses. So in each episode, you see Deluxe experts walking alongside these small businesses, helping them with their marketing, with their finances, all the things small businesses need to get in a better place as a business. But we still honor the original work by telling their stories. Like, you never see us change their skill set or question their passion. You fall in love with these business owners, and then Deluxe plays an authentic character in helping them have a more solid grasp on their business so that they can stay doing what they love about their business.
Yeah, one of the things that I love about it is, for anybody who loves things like, Shark Tank or The Profit or anything like that, like the Small Business Revolution, I feel like really gives a much better realistic approach of like the work that goes into being able to get a business to grow or to turn around and stuff. So like, I feel like you really show the behind the scenes piece of what it's like.
Yeah, and I think, and that's the thesis of this work, is like we're trying to show. I think it looks so easy to people from the outside, especially for those of us who eat out a lot or go to restaurants pre-COVID. I think a lot of people think that restaurants are just rolling in it, but when you tell the story of a restaurant owner and you see how razor thin those margins are and how little cash the business carries, then things like the current crisis we find ourselves in aren't so confusing. And so we really try to honor the small business journey by telling the truth. And we really admire the fact that the small business owners that are featured on the show are so brave. I mean, they're opening up their books. We talk about their finances. We point out and help them with the things that they're struggling with from a marketing perspective. But what we love about this is the two things that small businesses struggle with the most are marketing, maybe not necessarily understanding how to use marketing to grow their business or how to do marketing or execute it. And then the second thing that they struggle with is their numbers and their finances, and either not knowing what the numbers are telling them or not knowing how to manage them. And so again, we get to play a very authentic role, because you couldn't do a makeover for a small business and not help them with those two things. But the entire time, what we're trying to do is to show people how hard it is to run a small business, and in order to inspire them to support small businesses. But then also for the small business audience who watches the show, we're really trying to affirm them. I mean, it's a very lonely thing to be an entrepreneur, because you feel like you have to have all the answers, and you don't really have a peer set like those of us in corporate America. And so for them to see another business owner struggling with the same things is again very affirming, because they feel like, okay, I'm not the only one who's struggling with this thing. And we show solutions, and we show maybe what to do about it, but it's all done with heart. When we talk about some of the other shows in this space, like The Profit and things like that, there's almost a spirit of like making people sound silly or pointing out what they got wrong. And that is never the spirit of our work. Our work is truly to honor who they are as individuals and just show how these resources can help you run a better business.
Yeah. Another way that you're showcasing that, Amanda, is with the Small Business Big Heart. Okay, that trailer I've watched like half a dozen times. I get choked up like every time I watch it. It's like 2.5 minutes maybe, but it's really featuring small business owners and how they are responding to COVID-19 and the things that they are doing to support their communities, at great expense for themselves, and with still all the uncertainty that they have of what's going to happen to their businesses, is just like, it's so hopeful, right? And when we are dealing with uncertainty and we have to decide whether or not to take a big leap, is the risk worth it? We all need hope in some way, shape, or form. And so I love this. I love this series trailer that you have on your website, and we'll put all the links in at the end so people can easily find that. But it's very inspiring to see them. What are some of the trends that you're noticing and seeing with entrepreneurs right now, so that as they're striving and thriving through the pandemic?
Yeah, so there's 3 things that we're seeing small businesses respond to that gives us great hope for the entrepreneurial community. So the first one is what you just pointed out, and what we're trying to highlight in the Small Business Big Heart series. So that series is us interviewing entrepreneurs who are stepping up for their communities in big ways. And we wanted to do that series because we wanted to offer that kind of hope right now. This is what we see entrepreneurs do. This is what small businesses have always done so well. They give back to their communities disproportionately. And we wanted to applaud that and celebrate that, help them fundraise to support their business during this time, but really just wanted to feature and show off what small businesses do. I mean, it wasn't even, small businesses don't even question whether or not they should do it. They just do it. Big companies would spend a whole strategy series trying to figure out what to do or how to respond, but small businesses, they just do it. And so the first thing that we're seeing is that small businesses are giving back in disproportionate ways, and we love that the universe is almost rewarding them for it. When I talk about this doing well by doing good, in all of I think we've released 18 of these Small Business Big Heart episodes so far, and in all of them, somehow their business is doing well because of the goodness that they're doing. But they didn't do it for that reason. They did it because that was their instinct and they could. And so they did it. And then something else has come along. Either business has come because of the goodness that they're doing, or a large government contract has come along. I could give a different example on each, but it's like they've been rewarded for this goodness. And it's just so magical to see. And they're able to keep their employees on staff and keep their business afloat. So the first thing we're seeing is that businesses are doing good in these times, like doing good for other people. And that is actually leading to their business surviving and thriving. The second thing that we're seeing is that businesses are starting to realize, like, this is the business now. I think when the crisis first hit, there were a few weeks where people were almost holding their breath and wondering when things would get back to normal, and if they could just kind of bide their time until things settled back in. And I think we're all seeing that there is no exact end in sight, and that even normal on the other side of this pandemic is going to be different. And so the businesses that are really using this time to get focused, to figure out how do they address different markets, what is their community and their customers asking of them, what is the situation asking of them, and then really figuring out, what do I sell, how do I sell it, and where do I sell it. We need the businesses that are really figuring out that pivot right now are doing better, rather than we are seeing there are a lot of small businesses that are just kind of, again, still kind of holding their breath, hoping it goes back. But businesses that are kind of, I hate to use the term leaning in, but like leaning into like, okay, this is a business now. What do I do as a business that can help people and make their lives better, and make my business accessible to be supported right now? And those that are focusing on that right now are doing well. And the third thing that we're seeing is that the businesses that are leaning into marketing and technology right now are just going to be able to survive and thrive in a different way. We've always advocated for having a really strong online presence. We've always felt like that is exceptionally important for businesses, but right now it is critical. I mean, your online presence is your storefront and will be for the foreseeable future, even after people are allowed to come back together publicly and in common spaces. Consumer habits are changing. People are now realizing that curbside for some of the things that they buy is pretty convenient, or delivery is great, or to be able to be findable online and have a really strong online presence and a technology bed to your business is really important. And so those are the three things that we're really seeing from small businesses that are not just surviving, but are thriving right now.
Yeah, that's great. And how do you think that's going to be influencing Deluxe's portfolio of the ways that they're helping small business in the future? Do you see the company kind of making a shift to respond to those changes?
Yeah, our portfolio of things that we help small businesses with continues to evolve every year. And so, we've done payroll, we've done point of sale, a lot of these different things in the past, but we're of course doubling down on those efforts right now. So making sure that you can receive electronic payment. We've moved a lot of our check products to electronic check processing so that you can move your money electronically faster with the same security that checks offer. So there's a lot of things that we're trying to do to make sure that we're helping support small businesses in that technology bed that I'm talking about, as well as continuing to help them modify their marketing. Not every business is going to want to set up a full-blown e-commerce site, but things like having a point of sale system that allows you to sell in some capacity online is just going to be imperative for businesses moving forward. So we are, continuing to evolve our products and services in ways that continue to kind of support businesses in what is now being asked of them in a bigger way.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it falls in line with your philosophy, right, about the doing well by doing good. And you've mentioned it in a couple ways, and certainly the small businesses that are doing that right now. But tell us a little bit more about your brand purpose philosophy and how you see businesses and the ways that they should be looking at, community partnership, or, social differences, and just how you see that philosophy. Maybe this is the next movement coming about as a result of COVID.
Yeah, I think a lot of companies have started to talk about this concept of brand purpose. And in some ways, I'm getting a little tired of it, because I feel like some people are just stopping at defining some sort of brand purpose. And if you actually aren't doing anything with your brand purpose, then all we've done is found a really fun marketing catchphrase for the concept of a mission statement. So brand purpose is great if you're actually then turning it into actual brand action. So our purpose is to champion businesses so communities can thrive. And our action is we're actually out there doing that, helping businesses be successful, investing in communities, and helping those things come to fruition. And so I think my philosophy is that companies need to for sure identify their brand purpose, but they can't stop there. They have to then figure out what is our unique brand action in the world. And as I said earlier, not every company is going to address the exact same thing in terms of making the world a better place. You have to figure out what really matters to your customer base, and again, how you can make a difference in their lives and make their lives better in the way that's better means to them, not to you, as humans and as companies. And truly take that action and put your money where your mouth is. I think consumers are just so savvy now. You can't just say you stand for something and then not actually do it. I think we're seeing that a lot with a lot of the kind of the rhetoric right now around COVID messaging from brands. We're seeing all these beautiful anthematic spots, And I think people are like, cool, nice spot. What are you doing? Like, what are you out there actually doing to be helping people right now? Anyone can put up an ad that says you care. What are you doing to show that you care in a unique way to your company, that in a place where your company can actually truly make a difference? I love there's a wireless company out there that could just be talking about how they're making a difference, but they're out there trying to make sure that they are trying to break down the technology equality barrier. That I have a young daughter and we're doing homeschooling, and I take for granted the fact that we have access to Wi-Fi and that our internet connection is stable, but there are tons of kids out there where that's not their reality. So you take on the complexity of e-learning, and then on top of it, you don't have connectivity at your home. It makes it nearly impossible to do any sort of distance learning. And so companies in that space, what are they doing about it? That is something that you guys should be doing to help people, again, beyond just talking about the fact that you care.
Yeah, and I'd like to make a request too, that especially some companies that are in that space do it beyond, like, to a certain extent, like do it so it hurts a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Just the baseline, and feeling like people can get by on just the basics. And so I just feel like we're seeing some of that too. Like, we'll stay focused on the best of, and I won't go down the rabbit hole of who's really stinking it up right now, but
But I think a lot of companies do kind of get it a little wrong, though. Like, they kind of just think about, like, what should we be doing, and then they kind of stop there. I love how you just said that. Like, it should actually hurt a little bit. Like, it should feel like you're sacrificing something. Like, whenever I'm talking about this brand action or the movement that we created, like, these were our ad dollars. This wasn't like an incremental fund that I made a case for. We were making a bet that doing the right thing was going to make a difference in the end. And the bet was taking actual dollars away from talking about ourselves and investing it in other people. And so I think you do have to think about it that seriously. And I think the other thing is, like, we've talked so much today in business about for-profit and nonprofit. And it's just like, why do those things have to be so mutually exclusive? Why does it mean, like, either you make money or you don't make money and you help people? Like, why can't we bring these things together? Because the great thing is, as big companies, we have incredible wealth of resources and incredible reach. I mean, as brands, we are not necessarily us because we have very small budgets, but a lot of companies, you're standing behind giant megaphones talking about something. And if you were using those same airways to talk about something that mattered, couldn't you maybe still achieve your business goals, but actually make a difference? Like, people are listening to what you say, and it can either be about yourself or it can be about advocating for some sort of change or action. Be doing that action yourself too, but be encouraging people to come along with you.
yeah. And sometimes, like, Gen Z gets a lot of the credit for being very socially conscious and, perhaps encouraging or demanding that we're that way. But I'm not Gen Z and I feel that way. So what do you think is, like, really contributing to that shift, that you got to put money where your mouth is, brand?
Yeah, I think we're just all hungry for connection. And I think we're starting to get a little sick of how much of business is just about making money and making the rich richer and continuing to classify. Like, I think we all just want to be a part of a community that is helping each other. And I think some of us realize, like, no matter what position you're in, if you don't work in a nonprofit, you can advocate for goodness in the world. And if everyone's kind of advocating for goodness, no matter what size company they work for, whether they're on the for-profit or nonprofit side, if we're all kind of moving towards a better world, it'll get better faster. And I think you're right. Gen Z does seem more just kind of prone to it. We're seeing a lot of the entrepreneurs that are kind of coming straight out of school, just baking social goodness into their business model, which is phenomenal. So they're not trying to, retrofit and back plan into it. They're just building it in from the very beginning. And we love that. But I think big companies can catch up. I think that they can work backwards into the same type of model. And I think we're also seeing with things like B Corps. And I think people are starting to understand that there's a social responsibility beyond just making money and employing people, that you can actually contribute to society.
Yeah, I love the B Corp model. I hope more and more businesses get certified in that. And it also takes leadership like that you demonstrate, Amanda. We need people like you at the big brands who are driving that message and living that purpose of doing well by doing good. So please keep doing what you're doing. And then here's the ask. So if you are going to, be talking to a group of entrepreneurs, because we have lots of entrepreneurs in this audience, and you were talking to them about marketing and communications, especially in these uncertain times, what are some tips that you would give them?
The number one thing right now is to be communicating with your customers exhaustively. So, and being very clear in that communication. So right now people want to support small businesses. I think they have always wanted to, but people do recognize how disproportionately this crisis is affecting small businesses. So people want to do their part to support you, but as entrepreneurs and small businesses, we need to make that as easy as possible for them to do so. So it's about looking at your toolkit of communication vehicles and making sure that you're being consistent and clear across them. So looking at your website, making sure you have a COVID banner, that you're talking about your current status as a business. Are you open? Are you closed? Are you hybrid? How should they order from you? And how can they order from you? And just being very, very clear about that. Also communicating what you're doing to keep your customers safe and what that experience and process is like when they come to support your business, as well as what you're doing for your employees. So making sure that your website is updated. I think we've all probably been to a website in the last couple of months that doesn't have any sort of notification about COVID, and you instantly subconsciously feel like they obviously haven't updated their website since January. Like you instantly get that feeling. So making sure you're communicating through your website and it's updated, making sure that you're updating all of your directory listings as well as on your website with your new hours, how they can get in touch with you, again, how they can order, what your status is, open, closed, or hybrid, but making sure that your directories are updated. Search engines reward consistency online. And so if you have your hours listed one way on your website and Yelp lists in a different way and your Google listing listed another way, all it does is punish your search ranking. So you want to make sure that you're being consistent, both from a customer experience perspective and because search is the name of the game. So let's make it as easy as possible for you to be showing up in the right way when people are searching for your kind of business. The third is making sure that you're using social media to do the same thing. So I don't know how detailed you want me to get, but on Facebook and Twitter, making sure you have a pinned post that talks about your current status as a business and how they can still support you. On Instagram, you can't post or you can't pin a post, but you can change your profile to make sure you're updated to reflect, again, your hybrid and how, or your status of a business as a business and how they can support you. Using email marketing to push out notifications to your customers, updating them on how they can still purchase from you. If you have specials, if you have deals, just staying in front of that customer base that is already self-acknowledged they want to hear from you through email marketing. And then the fifth is using things like offline advertising. So if you have a brick and mortar store, make sure you have a big sign in the window or a banner outside or a sidewalk chalkboard talking about, again, are you open, are you closed? Should they call this number, email this number, go to this website? How can they order from you? How can they support you? And using that, and then in the offline space, making sure that your outbound voicemail is clear about if you're checking that voicemail or not, or how they can order from you, if you're open or closed, checking those voicemails, getting back to customers. So continually thinking through, how can people find out about my business and if they can support me, and making sure that you're making it easy for them to do it. And communications is the key to doing that. And then again, just making sure everything is consistent and updated so that when people are searching for your kind of business, you're being returned against those search queries.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for that. Like very specific action steps that people can be taking right now. So when does season 5 come out? Because you're in New York, right?
We are.
Wine region.
We really are. So it was crazy when we first started hearing about COVID in America. It was, kind of January, February, and we were just starting to film season 5. And I remember we were having discussions about the narrative of season 5. And we said, I wonder if this COVID thing will end up even showing up in season 5. And then you fast forward 2 weeks later and it's like, oh my gosh, the world has come to a complete halt. This will be what season 5 is about. And so we have had to change a lot of the things and ways in which we produce a television show. So it's a lot of recorded Zoom and Microsoft Teams calls will make up the kind of the middle part of the episodes. Luckily, we were able to film a few scenes before this all hit. And then we're hoping to go back in July and finish up some of the filming. But this season will be very much about how businesses survived COVID and the crisis and how they pivoted their business. To hear some of the advice that we gave them and things like that, and how marketing kind of helped them through it. But it'll be launching in November, so just after the election. It was supposed to launch in September, but we had to obviously push that out.
Okay, well, we will look for that. And again, I'll put links in the podcast notes so people can check out the other 4 seasons of Small Business Revolution. And then Amanda, you really are a thought leader in marketing communication. So how can people find you?
Oh, well, thank you for saying that. So I'm on all the social platforms. My handle is at Amanda K. Brinkman. The K is important, so at Amanda K. Brinkman.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise in this and the behind the scenes look at the TV series. It's always great to talk with you, Amanda. So thank you all for checking out Champions of Risk podcast. And hey, if you are a business owner, you're an entrepreneur looking for your community, check out Champion Circles for Women Entrepreneurs. We are doing a free virtual session on June 4th, and you can find out more information at michaelwcathcart.com. Thanks, everyone.